Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Businessworld BFSI Tech Innovation Summit. How many people in this hall have heard about the term SMAC? So I'm sure almost all of you must have heard about it. This is a term coined by Gartner. It's actually an acronym for Social, Mobility, Analytics, and Cloud. So these are the top trends that are permeating enterprise technology space today. On a personal front, I feel that from all these four, mobility has the most potential. The most potential to disrupt existing business processes and to contribute significantly to a company's top line. So without any more delay, I would like to open up the discussion with Mr. Suresh Shanmugam from M&M Financial Services. Sir, how do you see mobility revolutionizing the BFSI space? We've already seen corporates leveraging mobility to the next level. They've already kind of incentivized and enforced their sales force with mobility. So what next? How are you seeing?
See, Mahindra Finance, if you see for last 18 years, whichever they have done, so they have done the better from the angle of what innovation which we can do in rural India, but we are representing more of an information systems and doing it out. So that things work well. But when we tagged as innovation and future technology and started introducing mobility, we saw a different impact in terms of even mobility carries out more in terms of behavioral patterns of the customers, which we can still capture through mobile phones and bring it back to the system.
Okay.
And rural India, if you see, like earlier, it was a big challenge in terms of infrastructure. Now slightly that still continues. We can't blame that system, but at least it was slightly matured in terms of what best we can do with the customer who expects a minimum finance. Like a personal loan, which earlier it takes time for somebody expired at home, something happens at festival season. Even at midnight today, people can get money. That's a situation which was empowered through mobile.
Right.
Okay, so
Sure.
if you see the good customers, prompt payers, all those things are relevant. When we generate systems through a report in terms of mobility, we are able to categorize majority of the systems which today give some information which talks about the behavioral patterns of the customer,
Sure.
which was not there earlier. Even if you recollect big data, which UMSO talks till today with a structured, non-structured, when you try to capture the information and bring it out, it talks more about a financial information or a non-financial information. Now slightly with the mobile, we are able to capture the behavioral patterns of the customer, which gives more impact of how we can innovate and go back to the customer.
Sure. No, that's a great way of getting insights. Sir?
I think earlier you used to have a lot of web-facing applications and only the people who had access to a desktop or laptop would be the ones that would come on through those mediums. But now with the mobile and almost every person having a smartphone, the reach has expanded. The frequency of interactions with the enterprises has also expanded. So earlier probably a person would try and come and do self-service once a day or once a week. Now he's doing it far more frequently. And to that extent, I think our branches are becoming leaner. And at the same time, the pressure on some of our back office solutions is becoming higher because everything has to be now available at the touch of a screen, all round the clock.
Sure.
So that's pressure or the changing face of technology as we see within the enterprise.
Right. Sure. Sir, so as sir
I
said,
divide
it is
mobility into two ways. One is internal customers and one is external end user customers. I would put it this way. If you don't go mobile, you are out of the race. So time for brick and mortar is gone. Customers have become more demanding. I think the penetration reach of mobility in India is much higher and growing at much faster pace. And the demand from the customers are growing. Why do you put an app to the end customer? You can put a typical HTML5 website, but when you have an app, it puts a footprint and the customers will come again and again. That's a difference. Now, to classify, you put internal and external customers. There are places where networks are not there. So for our internal customers, basically, there are two parts. One, acquisition, because as a NBFC, you are competing with banks.
Right.
So turnaround time has become higher. Customers have become demanding. So on the acquisition side, where network connectivity is not there, you really require capability of doing offline transaction, and then it seamlessly integrates with the core system when the network connectivity is there, and the sales force doesn't need to look at what it's going. So it's right from a lead generation to fulfillment of the transaction. So sitting at a location, we are able to do fulfillment of a transaction on the acquisitions. And we have been on the journey for mobility for almost 2 years. And at L&T, finance, the penetration has been with the our sales force at 85% efficiency month on month. Second part is on the collection. So collection also, previously it was brick and mortar. I give a receipt for, unless the cash is deposited at the branch or at the bank network, there was no knowing of what was there on the collection. But with mobility coming in, within few seconds we are able to know how much the guy has collected, and we are able to ensure that we give the credit to the customers the right way.
So there's more visibility.
Yeah, more visibility, and it also takes care of the fraud aspects which could be there.
Sure.
So this is there. The third part of the mobility is the end customers. So customers have become demanding. On the click of a button, if I am able to give an interest certificate to a customer. So as we always say, the highest cost is at the branch, the next cost is at the call center, the lowest cost is at the self-service. So self-service mode of convenience. So the infrastructure has to be really robust to take care of mobility.
Right.
So unless you do mobility, you are out of the race.
Sure. Sir, what are your thoughts? As Mr. Shah just said, the days of brick and mortar are over. So click and order is the motto of the day.
We slightly come from a different industry background, right? So we're into broking and distribution. And when it comes for broking, there's nothing called as an offline. The offline comes post-market hours. In broking industry, you need to be online from 9 to 3:30, and you need to render all the information to the customer to take decisions. The most important part about the mobility that has happened in the securities transaction market is it's not about the execution that you do, it's also the rendering of information. That becomes very important. So this is the only industry where the big data and the analytics all culled out together has been rendered as an information into the mobility app.
Sure.
So a customer who comes to typically into a mobile device does not only trade and transact, but also does an information search. He does some amount of research, he gets into the market depth about the particular scripts, and then he takes a decision. The expectation today is more from the consumer in this industry, and basis that expectation, we need to render those applications in terms of mobility. Otherwise, it just takes 650 rupees or probably a zero account opening in the market to switch over to another broker. So the competition is very high. The expectation of consumer is very high in terms of mobility. Till 2 years, 3 years ago, people were restricted towards their desktop app. They were restricted for web-based app. Today, due to the mobile app, on the fly, people are able to, at least in the Tier 1 cities and Tier 2 cities, people are having decent connectivity. They're able to connect and do the transaction. But the most important part is, this is the rendering part which we are talking about. We are talking about the user interface experience. We are talking about the rendering part which is happening on mobile app. But the critical part is the underlying infrastructure. However good might be your UI UX, however good might be your collection of information and rendering it to the customer, if you don't have a robust infrastructure which can sustain the multiple hits, which can sustain the capability, which can sustain at each infrastructure point to find out whether the right transactions are going through or whether sustainability, scalability is available or not, the entire rendering and the experience of the customer will go for toss. Because your expectation is, today the consumer is expecting that they don't want call drops, right? There's a huge hue and cry on call drops. That is a clear direction. They want 100% online and connected. So when you give a mobile app, customers don't prefer that it should be an offline mode, it should be an online mode. They want to take decision online, at the same time connectivity should be online, and at any point in time you can't afford to have a message coming that currently system is not available.
Right. Sure. No, very innovative use of mobility there, Shivatsa. Coming to you, sir, coming from the stock exchange, how do you think you are redefining mobility?
Today we have created, like we said, our first objective was to create a huge infrastructure. And by innovation at the back end, BS has already created an infrastructure to accommodate that. Today we have capacities of adopting 5 lakh orders per second.
Wow.
And this is what I'm talking
huge.
about. This is the kind of capacities we have built. Knowing very well that tomorrow if the mobile population grows, India has the largest mobile application, digital applications happening in the world today.
Okay.
Compared to US, compared to China, compared to Europe, digital transaction in the finance, India has 70% transactions coming through the mobile or the wow medium. Okay. Whereas the closest, the US, is somewhere close to 45 to 50%.
Oh,
okay, so it's such a big gap.
It's a big margin, yeah.
India's mobile adaptability is at a very, very rampant space. Okay, people have just adopted it, and it's because of a mass acceptance, I would say. People have accepted it. Not very many people are even thinking it seriously of a security part of it. Just because A is working, B is okay, if A is can use, why can't I use? So it's again since it's a comfort level, so we have not had too many, I would say, frauds or anything coming out. So maybe in near future we might get, because the more it gets popularized, the more it is there. Maybe these things also will catch up at some point in time.
Sure.
So as a regulator, as an institution, we have to be very cautious of when we are rolling out things. It's not only popularizing the platform, it is popularizing what is the do's and don'ts of that platform. That's also, I think, we as an institution, we try and propagate to the people what to do in a mobile, what not to do in a mobile. I think that's still at a nascent level.
Sure.
We are working with the cybersecurity folks, and at different levels I work, and that's what we are trying to educate people also as an exchange.
Okay, sure. No, sir. So the adoption of enterprise mobility in enterprises has been brisk, no doubt about it. But enterprise technology decision makers are also grappling with certain challenges, like sir said, network connectivity, pressure on the back end. What do you feel, according to you, what are the biggest challenges, bottlenecks
I would classify the problem into two areas. One is, like most of the panelists have also said, there are two types. One is customer facing.
Right.
And one is internal processing.
Right.
Whenever it comes to internal processing, there is a huge resistance to adopt.
Okay.
But when it is going to the customer end, we are proliferating and telling everybody go mobile, go web, because for the customer, the cost of operations and the ease of operations is primary, and little bit of and adequate security is good enough security, I would say. Moment it comes to operating on a mobile for a critical back office application, it's a big no-no from most of the cases. Except from the guys who are doing, who are just feeding information, like all the Salesforce teams. In most cases, it could be like most of people are given whether it's a KYC information or application forms which are filling up, and there is far more simpler. But moment you start asking someone, can I give a web analytics of something, or then give me out? There, I think so. The population has to be very, very restricted, because, like I said, it's a nascent field. People still don't know where they can go wrong.
Right.
Okay, because that is a very, very need, very, very, I would say, prudent steps, rather than being over enthusiast and try to open up everything for everybody.
Okay.
Like you are creating a grave for yourself, like I would say, if you do that kind of work. So you have to be very, very cautious when you open up.
Right.
Open up very, very restrictively. There's a lot of pressure.
Okay,
I'm
lot of
as a
pressure.
CIO on me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want everything, and everything has to be secured, everything has to be made available, and I'm not responsible for anything if anything goes wrong.
Sure.
From the customer side. So as a CIO, I think we need to be very cautious when we give this kind of services to our end users also.
Sure.
Things are available on the mobile. We have started, but very, very restrictive use of applications. I think that's where a lot of work yet needs to be done.